They dragged the scarred girl from the prince's feet. Then he stopped them with 3 words. Zaraline's cheek scraped against palace stone as the guard's boot pressed between her shoulder blades. The crowd's laughter clawed at her ears. 200 voices merged into one monstrous sound. "Get this creature out of the prince's sight." Her sister Bellamy's voice cut through the chaos, dripping with theatrical disgust. The bride candidates stepped backward in perfect unison, their painted faces twisted in revulsion. Zaraline tasted blood and courtyard dust. This was insanity, believing she could hide her scars under a borrowed cloak, believing the prince's proclamation meant her too. Above the noise, footsteps echoed, slow, deliberate. The laughter died like a snuffed candle. She didn't dare look up. A shadow fell across her broken body, and Prince Daxton's voice cut through the silence like a blade. "Let her stand." Hit subscribe right now, because what happens in the next 60 seconds will shatter everything this kingdom believes about beauty. And there's a twist coming that even Zaraline doesn't see. 3 days earlier, Zaraline had never imagined she'd be anywhere near the palace. She belonged in her father's forge in Kyne, where the heat didn't care about the keloid scars covering the left side of her face, crawling down her neck, wrapped around both arms like angry vines. The furnace didn't flinch when she fed it coal. The anvil didn't turn away when her scarred hands shaped molten iron into horseshoes and farming tools. "Zaraline, the grain needs grinding." Her mother's voice stabbed through the forge's heat. Patience never entered the workspace, couldn't bear to watch her daughter's ruined hands doing work meant for servants. Zaraline set down her hammer and wiped sweat from her brow. Through the forge's open wall, she could see her 3 sisters in the courtyard. Bellamy, the eldest, sat like a painted statue while a servant braided cowrie shells into her hair. Cordette practiced her dancing, hips swaying to music only she could hear. Sylvain, the youngest, only 2 years older than Zaraline, plucked at a kora, her fingers moving across the strings with practiced grace. All 3 of them were beautiful. All 3 of them were marriageable. All 3 of them pretended Zaraline didn't exist. "Did you hear me?" Patience appeared in the doorway, careful not to cross the threshold. "The grain won't grind itself." "Yes, mother." Zaraline kept her voice flat. Emotion only made things worse. She was halfway to the grain house when the drums started. Not the usual evening drums that called workers home from the fields. These were royal drums, the deep bass that announced important news. The entire village of Kyne seemed to freeze mid-motion. 2 men on horseback appeared at the end of the main road, wearing the deep purple of the royal house of Edania. Behind them, a 3rd man carried a scroll sealed with gold wax. Zaraline's father, Thaddeus, emerged from the forge, wiping his hands on his leather apron. Other families poured from their compounds. Within minutes, half the village had gathered. The lead messenger unrolled the scroll. "By decree of His Royal Highness, Prince Daxton of Edania, the prince seeks a bride. All unmarried women of the kingdom are invited to participate in 3 challenges. These challenges will test not beauty, but the measure of one's spirit. The selection begins in 3 days at the palace in Orica. No woman shall be turned away." The crowd erupted. Mothers grabbed daughters. Fathers shouted questions. Young women squealed with excitement. "All unmarried women," someone called out, "even." "All unmarried women," the messenger repeated firmly. The prince's words were specific. Every woman deserves the opportunity to be seen for who she truly is. Zaraline's heart hammered against her ribs, for who she truly is, not for what she looks like. She turned to run back to the forge, but Patience's hand clamped around her wrist. "Don't even think about it." "Mother," he said. "I don't care what he said." Patience's voice dropped to a deadly whisper. "You will not humiliate this family further. Your sisters have a chance now, a real chance, and you will not ruin it by showing up and reminding everyone of our shame." "I'm not your shame," Zaraline whispered. "Yes, you are." Patience's eyes were cold. "You've been our shame since the day you decided to play hero and destroyed yourself. Now go to your room." "Mother." "Now." That night, Zaraline didn't go to her room. She went to the grain storage hut where Patience locked her, sliding the heavy wooden bolt across the door with a sound like a death sentence. Zaraline sat in the darkness, surrounded by sacks of millet and dried corn, and let herself cry, just for a moment, just long enough to release the pressure building in her chest. Then she heard it, a scratching sound at the window. "Child, move away from the wall." Zaraline scrambled backward. The wooden shutter creaked, and a bone hairpin slid through the gap, working at the latch from outside. After a few seconds, the shutter swung open, revealing the weathered face of Camry, the old medicine woman who sold herbs at the market. "Camry, what are you?" "Quiet." The old woman's hands moved with surprising speed, working the window wider. "Can you fit through here?" "Why would I?" "Because I didn't survive 70 years in this world to watch a girl with fire in her blood sit in a grain hut while her destiny waits in Orica." Camry pulled a dark blue cloak from her bag and pushed it through the window. "Cover yourself until the right moment. And remember, the prince sees what others miss." "You don't understand, my mother." "Your mother is afraid," Camry interrupted. "Afraid that you'll succeed where her pretty daughters fail. Now move, child. Orica is 5 miles north and dawn comes quickly." Zaraline stared at the cloak in her hands, then at the open window, then at the locked door behind her. 3 days ago, she would have stayed in the hut, would have accepted her mother's decision, would have let her sisters have their chance without her. But something in the messenger's words had cracked something open inside her chest, the measure of one's spirit. She climbed through the window. The walk to Orica took most of the night. Zaraline's feet ached, and her back screamed from scrambling through the window, but she kept moving. By the time she reached the capital city's gates, dawn was breaking over the red clay rooftops, painting everything gold and crimson. The palace loomed ahead, its walls decorated with intricate patterns that told the story of Adania's founding. Hundreds of women crowded the courtyard, a sea of colorful wraps and elaborate hairstyles. Zaraline pulled her hood lower and joined the back of the crowd. A horn blasted, the palace doors opened. Prince Daxton emerged, and the crowd fell silent. He was tall, broad-shouldered. His skin the deep brown of polished mahogany. He wore ceremonial robes of purple and gold, but something about the way he carried himself seemed careful, guarded. His left hand remained gloved despite the morning heat. "Welcome," his voice carried across the courtyard. "I thank you for coming. These challenges will be unconventional. I am not searching for the most beautiful woman in Adania. I am searching for someone who understands that true strength comes from surviving what tried to destroy you." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. What an odd thing for a prince to say. "The first challenge," Daxton continued, "begins now." That's when the guards moved in. They walked straight toward Zaraline, and her blood turned to ice. Someone had recognized her. Someone had sent word. They were going to drag her back to Kynin in front of everyone. But the guards walked past her. They grabbed a young woman near the front, a girl with a slight limp and a birthmark across her neck. Another guard seized a woman with a twisted hand. A third pulled forward a candidate who was shorter than the others, broader in build. And then they came for Zaraline. The guard's hand closed around her arm like a vice. He yanked her forward and her hood fell back. The crowd gasped. Someone screamed. Her scars were exposed to 200 pairs of eyes, the raised keloids catching the morning light like a map of pain written on her skin. "This one too," the guard announced. "Get them out." That's when Bellamy's voice rang out, crystal clear. "Get this creature out of the prince's sight." The other candidates laughed. Some covered their mouths in mock horror. Others whispered behind their hands. Zaraline saw Cordette and Sylvain in the crowd, their faces carefully blank. The guard shoved her forward. She fell. Her palms hit stone and pain shot up her wrists. The boot came next, pressing between her shoulder blades, grinding her face against the courtyard. The world narrowed to dust and blood and laughter and shame. Then the footsteps, slow, deliberate. The laughter stopped. Prince Daxton's shadow fell across her. Zeraline squeezed her eyes shut, waiting for the final humiliation, for him to tell the guards to throw her out, to make an example of the girl who thought she could compete. Let her stand. The boot lifted from her back. Strong hands gripped her shoulders, helping her up. Zeraline opened her eyes and found herself staring directly into Prince Daxton's face. His eyes were dark brown, almost black, and they held no disgust, no pity, just curiosity. He steadied her, then turned to face the crowd. The first challenge is complete. Confused silence. I asked my guards to identify and publicly humiliate the women they deemed least desirable based on appearance alone. Daxton's voice was hard now, edged with anger. I wanted to see who among you would show compassion, who would protest this injustice. He gestured to the crowd. 4 women spoke up. 4 women out of 200 tried to stop my guards from abusing another human being. A farmer's daughter named Tendeji stepped forward, her face defiant. It was wrong, Your Highness. They didn't deserve that. A weaver named Enkuruka nodded. No one deserves that. A hunter's sister, Imara, crossed her arms. I don't care how someone looks. Cruelty is cruelty. And surprisingly, a noblewoman named Farai, dressed in expensive silks, added quietly, My brother has a clubfoot. I've watched people mock him his entire life. I won't be part of that. Daxton smiled at them. Then he turned to the rest of the crowd. The rest of you either laughed, stayed silent, or actively participated in the humiliation. You have revealed your character. Guards, escort these women from the palace grounds. Chaos erupted. This isn't fair, Bellamy shrieked. We didn't know it was a test. That's precisely the point, Daxton said coldly. Character isn't something you perform when you know you're being watched. It's what you do when you think no one important is looking. Cordette grabbed Bellamy's arm, trying to pull her away, but Bellamy wrenched free. You can't do this. My father is a wealthy merchant. We have connections. You need. I need women of integrity, Daxton interrupted, which you have proven you are not. Remove them. The guards moved efficiently. Within 10 minutes, only 8 women remained in the courtyard, the 4 who had spoken up, Zeraline, and 3 others who had stayed carefully neutral. Zeraline's legs trembled. She was still here, still standing, still in the competition. Daxton addressed the remaining women. The second challenge will test something deeper. Follow me to the Grove of Whispers. They walked in silence through the palace gardens, past fountains and flowering trees, until they reached a dense forest at the edge of the grounds. Ancient baobabs towered overhead, their massive trunks twisted with age. This grove is sacred, Daxton explained. The ancestors listen here. Each of you will walk the path alone and speak aloud your deepest truth. Whatever you say will be heard. What he didn't explain was that the grove was an acoustic marvel. Natural rock formations created perfect echo chambers that carried sound to a hidden alcove where he and his council would listen. One by one, the women entered. Tendeji spoke about wanting to escape poverty, to give her family a better life. Honest but practical. Enkuruka talked about duty and service to the kingdom. Admirable but rehearsed. Imara confessed she'd always felt like an outsider, never quite fitting in anywhere, closer to real vulnerability. Farai admitted she was lonely, tired of being valued only for her family's wealth. Raw but still safe. Then came Zeraline's turn. She walked the path between the towering baobabs, her footsteps muffled by fallen leaves. The air smelled of earth and rain. She could feel the weight of the trees, their presence like silent witnesses. And suddenly she was exhausted. Exhausted from hiding, from pretending, from carrying the weight of her mother's shame and her sister's cruelty and her own desperate hope that maybe, somewhere, someone would see her as more than ruined skin. She stopped in the center of the grove and spoke to the trees. I don't want pity, her voice cracked. I don't want someone to choose me despite my scars. I want someone brave enough to see that I survived, that I walked through fire and came out breathing. These marks aren't my shame, they're my proof that I'm still here, that I'm stronger than what tried to destroy me, and I'm tired of apologizing for surviving. The words echoed through the grove, bouncing off stone, carried by wind. In the hidden alcove, Prince Daxton's hand trembled. His advisor, an elderly man named Obadiah, whispered, "Your Highness." "That one," Daxton breathed. "I need to know her name." "Zereline, daughter of Thaddeus, the blacksmith from Kynene." Daxton closed his eyes. "She understands." "That understands what, my lord?" "What it means to carry a wound the world can see." The second challenge ended. 4 women advanced to the final round: Zereline, Tendeji, Imara, and Farai. That evening they were brought to a moonlit courtyard where a long table had been set with food: jollof rice fragrant with spices, grilled fish, plantains fried to golden perfection, fresh mango slices. Prince Daxton sat at the head of the table, his posture relaxed but his eyes watchful. "The final challenge," he said, "is simple. I will answer one question from each of you, truthfully, whatever you want to know." The women exchanged glances. This was unexpected. Tendeji went first. "What do you value most in a leader?" Daxton considered this. "Humility, the wisdom to know you don't have all the answers." Imara asked, "What's your greatest strength as a warrior?" "Patience," Daxton replied, "knowing when to strike and when to wait." Farai's question was softer. "What do you fear most?" Daxton's jaw tightened. "Becoming the kind of man who values appearance over substance, who chooses comfort over truth." Then it was Zeraline's turn. She'd been studying him throughout dinner. The way he kept his left hand always gloved. The way he angled himself away from the brightest torches. The careful control in his movements, like someone protecting an old injury. She asked, "What wound are you hiding?" The courtyard went silent. Even the insects seemed to stop chirping. Daxton stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he removed his left glove. His hand and forearm were covered in claw marks, thick, twisted scars that ran from his knuckles to his elbow. The skin was discolored, badly healed, the kind of damage that came from surviving something that should have killed you. 3 years ago," he said quietly, "I was engaged to Princess Alibisi of Zemya. We were traveling together when a rogue leopard attacked our caravan. It killed 2 guards before I managed to drive a spear through its heart, but not before it," he gestured to his arm, "not before it left its mark." He looked directly at Zereline. "Alibisi saw my injuries after the battle. She broke our engagement the next day, publicly. She said she couldn't marry damaged goods unfit for a throne," the other kingdoms heard. "Suddenly, I wasn't a hero who saved lives. I was just ruined." Zeraline's throat tightened. "So this competition is not about finding a wife," Daxton finished. "It's about finding someone who understands that scars don't define worth, that survival is its own kind of beauty." Their eyes met across the table, and something passed between them. Recognition, understanding, the wordless acknowledgement of 2 people who had carried the weight of visible wounds in a world that prized perfection. What happens next will change both their lives forever, but first, hit that like button if you're feeling this story. They talked for hours after the other women had been escorted to guest chambers. Daxton told her about the leopard attack, the slow healing, the humiliation of being rejected not for who he was but for how he looked. Zereline told him about the forge, about learning to find value in work when the world said she had no value at all. "Your mother locked you in a grain hut." Daxton's voice was incredulous. "She was trying to protect my sister's chances," Zereline said. "In her mind, my presence would remind everyone of our family's shame." "What shame?" Zereline hesitated. She'd never told anyone the full story. Not even her father knew all of it. "The scars aren't from an accident," she said finally. "When I was 8, there was a ceremony, the Festival of Flames. Children walk through blessed smoke to receive protection from the ancestors. But during the ritual, a boy fell into the fire. I pulled him out." Daxton leaned forward. "You saved his life." "I violated sacred law." Zaraline's voice was flat. "You're not supposed to interrupt the ceremony." The elders were furious. The boy's family was humiliated, and I was burned so badly. She touched her face. "The village healer did what she could, but my mother never forgave me. She said I destroyed our family's reputation, made all her daughters unmarriageable." "That's absurd," Daxton said fiercely. "You were 8 years old. You saved someone's life." "It didn't matter. After that, I was just the scarred daughter. The one they hide when visitors come. The one who works in the forge because at least there, my hands are useful." Daxton reached across the table and took her scarred hand in his scarred hand. "Your mother is wrong, and anyone who can't see your courage is blind." Zaraline's heart hammered. His thumb traced the ridge of keloid tissue across her knuckles, and for the first time in 10 years, she didn't feel the urge to pull away. "I'd like to choose you," Daxton said softly, "if you'll have me." Before Zaraline could answer, the courtyard doors banged open. Queen Adiz swept in, her purple robes billowing, her face carved from stone. "This charade ends now." Daxton stood. "Mother." "Be silent." Adiz's voice could have frozen water. "Guards, find out who this girl really is, and someone bring me the record keeper. I want to know exactly what happened during the fire that scarred her." "You have no right," Daxton began. "I have every right. I am your mother and your queen, and I will not stand by while you throw away your future on a commoner with delusions of heroism." The record keeper arrived within minutes, carrying leather-bound scrolls. Adiz snatched them and began reading aloud. "Festival of Flames, 10 years ago. Subject: Zaraline, daughter of Thaddeus and Patience of Kyne. The girl interrupted a sacred ceremony by entering the fire pit to retrieve a child identified as Prince Kelechi of the Western Province. She sustained severe burns. The child's family demanded her punishment for violating sacred law. The village elders agreed. Case closed." Adiz looked up, her eyes glittering. "Prince Kelechi, my late husband's nephew, the boy you saved." "He was burning," Zaraline whispered. "I couldn't just—" "He died anyway." Adiz's words fell like hammer blows. 4 months later, fever took him. So tell me, girl, was it worth it? Destroying your life, your family's reputation, your future, all for a boy who died anyway." The world tilted. Zaraline couldn't breathe. The boy died. She'd carried the belief for 10 years that her scars had meaning, that she'd saved someone, that the pain had been worth something. But he died anyway. She'd sacrificed everything for nothing. "Mother, that's enough." Daxton stepped forward, but Zaraline was already running. She fled the courtyard, through the gardens, out the palace gates. She didn't stop until she reached Kyne, until she was back at the forge, collapsing among the tools and ash. Her family's compound was dark. The doors were locked. They'd heard about her humiliation at the palace and wanted no part of it. So she stayed in the forge, curled on the dirt floor, and let the grief tear through her. Behind her, the forge door creaked open. "Crying won't fix anything, child." Zaraline didn't look up. "Go away, Camry." "Can't do that." The old woman settled beside her with a grunt. "I have something to tell you about my grandson." "I don't care about—" "The boy you saved wasn't named Kelechi," Camry interrupted. "Well, he was, but he didn't die." Zaraline's head snapped up. Camry's weathered face was serious. "I need to tell you who I really am. My name isn't Camry, it's Chiwendu. I was the queen of Adania before Adiz, Daxton's grandmother." "That's impossible. The queen died 5 years ago." "I faked my death." Chiwendu's voice was calm. "Court politics were suffocating me. There was an assassination plot against my grandson Kelechi, the Western Province prince. So I spread the rumor that he'd died of fever, smuggled him out of Adania, and disappeared myself. I've been traveling the kingdom ever since, watching, searching. Searching for what? For the girl who jumped into fire to save a child she didn't know. Chiwendu's eyes were bright. Kelechi is alive, Zaraline. He lives in the Eastern Territories as a merchant. He's 23 years old, healthy, thriving, and he's alive because of you. The words didn't make sense, but the record keeper said. The record keeper said what I told him to say. To protect Kelechi, everyone had to believe he was dead. I'm sorry you carried that guilt, but your scars do have meaning. You gave my grandson a future. Tears streamed down Zaraline's face. He's alive. Breathing, laughing, living. Because you were brave when you were 8 years old. Chiwendu stood, her joints creaking. Now I'm going to return to the palace and remind my daughter-in-law that I outrank her, and you're going to decide if you're brave enough to do it again. Do what? Jump into the fire, fight for what matters. Chiwendu left. Zaraline sat in the forge as dawn broke, her mind spinning. Kelechi was alive. The scars had meant something after all, but Adiz would never accept her. The court would never approve. Daxton would be forced to choose between his crown and... Hoofbeats sounded outside. She looked up to see Prince Daxton dismount, still wearing his formal robes, dust-covered from the ride. He didn't say anything. He just walked into the forge, picked up a hammer, and started working the cold furnace, trying to coax it back to life. Zaraline watched him struggle with the flint for a minute before she stood and took it from him. You're doing it wrong. Show me. She struck the flint properly and sparks caught in the tinder. Within minutes, flames licked at the coal. They worked in silence, Zaraline feeding the fire, Daxton pumping the bellows. The heat built between them, literal and otherwise. Finally Daxton spoke. My grandmother told me everything about Kelechi, about the lie. Your mother will never accept me. My grandmother outranks her. Daxton set down the bellows and turned to face her. And I don't need my mother's acceptance. I need you. Why? Because when the world threw you into fire, you came out stronger. And I need that strength beside me, not behind me, not in my shadow, beside me. He stepped closer. Marry me, not because I pity you, not because you saved someone, but because you're the bravest person I've ever met, and I'm tired of pretending that matters less than what my mother thinks. Zaraline looked at this prince with his scarred hand, and his defiant eyes, and his absurd willingness to throw away political convenience for something real. Your kingdom will talk, she warned. Let them. Your mother will fight this. She already lost. My grandmother's word is final. I work in a forge. I'm a blacksmith's daughter. And I'm a prince who got mauled by a leopard. We're both scarred, Zaraline. Might as well be scarred together. She kissed him then, there in the forge with ash on their clothes and soot on their skin, and it felt like the first honest thing that had happened in years. The wedding took place in Kynin, not the palace. Chiwendu presided, wearing her old queen's robes, very much alive and enjoying the shocked faces of the nobles who thought she was dead. Queen Adiz attended but sat in stony silence, her disapproval radiating like heat. And then Kelechi arrived. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with burned scars on his own forearm, marks that matched the day Zaraline had pulled him from the flames. He walked straight to Zaraline and knelt. I'm alive because of you, he said. Thank you. The crowd gasped. Whispers spread like wildfire. The boy she saved, he's alive. She wasn't foolish. She was a hero. Zaraline's family tried to approach after the ceremony. Patience reached for her daughter's hand, tears in her eyes. Zaraline, I'm so sorry. You locked me in a grain hut, Zaraline said evenly. You told me I was your shame. I was wrong. Yes, you were. Zaraline looked at her mother, her sisters, her father who had never once defended her. You're welcome to visit, but you'll be visiting me in the palace where I'll be queen. And Bellamy, she turned to her eldest sister, you'll serve 1 day a week in the village forge, learning the value of hard work. Bellamy's face flushed red, but she nodded. 3 months later, Zeraline stood beside Daxton as they addressed the kingdom from the palace balcony. They wore their scars openly, his arm, her face, visible proof of survival. "We are your king and queen," Daxton announced, "and we want to make something clear. This kingdom values strength, real strength, the kind that comes from surviving what tried to destroy you." Zeraline added, "Scars are not shame. They're proof that you fought something and lived, and anyone who tells you otherwise is afraid of your power." The crowd below erupted in cheers. Not everyone agreed, change is never universal, but enough people cheered, enough people understood. That night in their private chambers, Daxton traced the scars on Zeraline's face with gentle fingers. "Do you ever regret it, jumping into the fire?" She thought about 8-year-old her, seeing a child burning and not hesitating. She thought about the pain, the healing, the years of being called monster and creature and shame. "No," she said, "I'd do it again, because that's who I am, someone who doesn't look away when something's burning." "Good," Daxton said, "because I'm going to need that. Ruling is hard." "We'll do it together." Zeraline took his scarred hand in hers, two broken people making something whole. They said no man would choose her, but a true prince doesn't choose perfection, he chooses truth. And the truth is, scars are simply proof that you survived something that tried to destroy you. And survival is the bravest thing of all. If this story moved you, subscribe and drop a comment. What's your scar, physical or emotional, that proved you were stronger than you knew? Let's honor our survival together.